My name is Daniel Carter. I was an infantryman, United States Army. I fought in Vietnam in 1969. I live in Ohio now. I have a steady job, a family, a quiet house that smells like coffee in the morning. People like to believe the war stayed in Vietnam, buried in the jungle, left behind with the dead. They are wrong. There is one thing I brought home with me, one memory that never loosened its grip. They never wrote it down. They never warned us. But every man who survived learned it eventually. If you hear your name in the jungle, do not answer. Not out loud, not in your thoughts, not even when you are alone and afraid. Because the jungle already knows who you are, and when it speaks your name, it is not calling you back, it is claiming you. We were dug in outside a forgotten village in Vietnam. There was no name on the map, no sign on the road, just jungle pressing in from every direction. Green that never ended. Green that swallowed sound and distance. Our unit was infantry, young men mostly, some straight out of high school, some old enough to pretend they were not afraid. We lived in mud and heat. Boots never dried. Clothes stuck to your skin. The air smelled like wet leaves and rusted metal. Gun oil, sweat, rotting plants. Days blurred together. Patrol in the morning. Guard duty in the afternoon. More patrols before dark. We drank instant coffee mixed with warm water. It tasted like dirt, but it kept us moving. We smoked too much, passed cigarettes hand to hand. American brands that felt out of place in the jungle. Mail days were the best. Letters from home. Thin paper. Soft words. They smelled like another life. Like something clean and far away. We listened to the radio at night. Static and half-broken songs. Baseball scores that did not matter anymore. News that felt like it belonged to another world. There was Sergeant Harris. Been in country too long. Eyes always scanning the tree line. Never raised his voice. Never joked. Then there were the new guys. Fresh faces. Clean helmets. Still believed rules could protect them. We gave each other nicknames. Tex, Red, Miller. Names that felt lighter than our real ones. At night the jungle changed. It did not sleep. It breathed. Bugs screamed. Leaves shifted without wind. Branches cracked far away. Sometimes it sounded like footsteps. Sometimes like someone moving just out of sight. You learned to ignore it. You had to. If you stopped every time the jungle made noise, your nerves would break before your body did. We told ourselves it was animals. Heat, exhaustion, anything but what it felt like. Because deep down every one of us knew the jungle was watching. And it was listening. It started small. Too small to report. Too easy to ignore. I was on night guard when it happened the first time. Just past midnight. The hour when the jungle felt closest. I stood at the edge of the perimeter with my rifle held low. Sweat ran down my back even without moving. The air was thick and warm. Then I heard it. My name. Spoken softly, almost careful. Daniel. I froze for half a second. Then I laughed under my breath. It had to be Miller. He was always bored. Always trying to scare the new guys. I whispered back for him to knock it off. No answer came. I scanned the tree line. Nothing moved. No shapes. No shadows. The jungle kept breathing like it always did. I told myself it was nothing. The jungle plays tricks on you. Heat. Exhaustion. Fear. That is what we told ourselves when things did not make sense. The next night it happened again. Different post. Same darkness. This time the voice was closer. Clearer. Daniel, not whispered. Spoken like someone standing a few feet behind me. I spun around fast enough to almost trip. There was nobody there. I felt my heart pounding in my ears. My hands shook as I tightened my grip on the rifle. I searched the area with my flashlight. Trees, brush, mud, nothing that could speak. The radio stayed silent. No laughter, no signal. I did not report it. What would I say? That I heard my name. That night, I did not sleep. Over the next few days it happened to others. Quiet mentions during patrol. Short looks exchanged in the dark. Someone would say they thought they heard something. Then shrug it off. Nobody wanted to be the first to say it out loud, because once you named it, it became real. One evening while cleaning my rifle, I heard the voice again. Daniel, this time it sounded wrong. Not sharp, not playful, soft, tired. It sounded like home. like the kitchen late at night, like the voice that used to call me in for dinner. I felt my throat tighten. My chest ached in a way the jungle had never caused before. I told myself it was memory. Stress, a trick of the mind. War does strange things to people. That is what the officers said. But deep down I knew something else was happening. The voice did not come from any direction. It felt like it came from everywhere. From the leaves. From the ground. From the dark between the trees. One night I heard it say my name again. Slower. Like it was waiting. I stood perfectly still, holding my breath. I did not answer. I could not. Because the voice sounded exactly like my mother. And for the first time since arriving in Vietnam, I was not afraid of dying. I was afraid of answering back. Sergeant Harris pulled me aside after evening patrol. No anger. No urgency. Just that look. The one you only see on men who have been somewhere too long. He had been in Vietnam longer than anyone else in our unit. 2 tours, maybe more. His uniform was always clean, his rifle always ready, but his eyes looked older than his face. He waited until we were away from the others, out of earshot. Then he spoke quietly. The jungle talks, son, and it remembers names. I asked him what he meant. He shook his head. Some things you do not explain, you just survive them. He told me there were rules, not written ones, not orders from command. Rules passed from man to man, whispered. Never spoken too loud, because saying them too clearly felt like inviting something closer. Rule 1. If you hear your name at night, do not answer. Not as a joke. Not to curse back. Not to tell someone to shut up. Silence keeps you alive. Harris told me the jungle listens for answers. That was how it learns voices. Men who answered back stopped being found. No blood, no tracks. No gear left behind. Just an empty space where someone used to be. Rule 2. If it sounds like someone you love, stay silent. This one was harder. Harris said the jungle does not start with strangers. It starts with home. Voices that feel safe. Voices that lower your guard. Mothers, fathers, wives. Girls waiting back home. He said the voice will sound tired, kind, patient, like it has been waiting a long time. Men who answered those voices walked into the trees. Slow, calm, they never came back. Rule 3. Never follow voices into thick brush. The jungle is dense. Walls of green. Places where sound bends and distance lies. Harris said the jungle makes paths where none exist. Just enough to draw you in. Men followed voices thinking they were helping someone. A buddy. A wounded soldier. Later the patrols found nothing. No body. No signs of a struggle. Just disturbed leaves that settled back into place by morning. Rule 4. If someone answers back, do not go looking for them. This one hurt the most, because every instinct told us to search, to help, to bring our people home. Harris said that instinct gets more men killed than bullets. When someone answered the jungle, it was already too late. Going after them only added names to the list. The jungle does not take 2 at once. It takes 1. Then waits. Rule 5. If the jungle goes quiet, stop breathing. This was the rule nobody liked to talk about, because silence in Vietnam never meant safety. When the bugs stopped, when the birds vanished, that was when the jungle was closest. Harris said the jungle listens harder when it is quiet. Breathing too loud was like knocking on a door. Men who panicked, who gasped, who ran were the first to disappear. I asked Harris how he knew all this. He looked past me into the trees. I watched good men vanish, he said. Good men who followed the rules until one night they forgot. Or thought they were stronger than the jungle. He told me none of this was superstition. The jungle was not alive the way we were alive. But it remembered. It learned. It learned fear. It learned voices. It learned names. That night I started noticing things differently. How the jungle reacted when we spoke. How sound carried too far. Or not far enough. How my name felt heavier in my head. The rules made sense. Not because they explained anything, but because men who followed them survived, and men who did not were never found. After that, every night watch felt longer. Every whisper felt closer. And every time I heard my name, I remembered Sergeant Harris, and I stayed silent. Private Lewis was 19. From a small town in Ohio. Soft face, fast smile. The kind of kid who still said yes sir without thinking about it. He had a girl back home. Her name was Emily. He showed us her photo like it was proof. He still belonged to a normal world. Some nights he would sit by the sandbags and write to her. Slow. Careful. Like every word mattered. Sergeant Harris warned him more than once. Do not answer the jungle. Not for any reason. Lewis nodded every time. He listened. He tried. But fear does not care about rules when it wears a familiar face. That night the air felt heavier than usual. No wind. No distant gunfire. Just heat pressing down and the constant hum of bugs. I was 2 positions away from Lewis. Close enough to see the red tip of his cigarette in the dark. Close enough to hear his breathing. Then the jungle did something I had never heard before. It spoke with a voice that sounded clean. Young. American. Lewis froze. The cigarette ember hung in place like a tiny star. Emily. That name was not said out loud, but I saw it on his face. His eyes widened. His mouth opened just a little. The voice came again. Soft. Almost laughing. Lewis. He whispered back without meaning to. Just one word. A habit. A reflex. Yeah. The second he answered, the jungle changed. The bugs stopped. Not slowly. Instantly. Silence fell like a blanket. I felt every hair on my arms lift. My stomach turned cold. Sergeant Harris was across the line. I heard him shout Lewis' name once. A warning. Too late. Lewis stood up, like he was being pulled by a string. He took one step toward the trees. Then another. I hissed for him to get down. I reached out, but there was distance between us, and the jungle felt like a wall. The voice spoke again. Closer now. Right in front of him. Lewis, baby. I found you. It sounded like a girl trying not to cry. It sounded like home. It sounded like the reason you keep living. Lewis walked into the brush. He did not run. He did not panic. He moved like someone going to meet a friend. Sergeant Harris sprinted toward him. Fast and quiet. A man who had done this before. Harris grabbed Lewis by the shoulder and yanked him back. Lewis snapped like he woke from a dream. His eyes were wide and empty. Then he screamed. Not a shout, not a curse. A raw sound like his lungs were tearing. Harris pulled hard. Lewis fought like an animal. Kicking, scratching, trying to get back into the trees. I ran to help. So did Miller. So did Red. We grabbed Lewis' arms and dragged him into the open. For a second we had him. Then the jungle reached out. I cannot explain it any other way. The brush moved like it had hands. Vines snapped and coiled. Leaves shook without wind. Something unseen caught Lewis' ankle. It yanked. Lewis' body slid backward across the mud like he weighed nothing. Harris dug his boots in and held on. Miller grabbed Harris' belt. I grabbed Miller, a chain of men. Desperate, silent except for Lewis screaming. Then the scream cut off. One sharp break like a radio losing signal. Lewis was gone, not dragged away slowly, not pulled piece by piece, gone. The vines fell still. The leaves settled. The jungle breathed again like nothing happened. We stood there, panting, hands shaking, mud on our knees, staring into a wall of green. Sergeant Harris stared the longest. His face looked made of stone. He did not go in after him. Nobody did, because we remembered Rule 4. If someone answers back, do not go looking for them. That was the worst part. Not the screaming. Not the silence. The choice. The moment you realize the only thing keeping you alive is letting someone else disappear. We waited for gunfire, for movement, for anything. Nothing came. No blood, no pack, no rifle. No trace that Private Lewis ever existed, except the empty spot where he had been sitting and the photo of Emily still folded in his shirt pocket on the ground. After that night, no one laughed at the rules. No one even spoke names after dark. We pointed. We tapped shoulders. We used nicknames in whispers. And when the jungle called, we stayed silent. Because we had heard what happens when you answer. And we had seen how fast the jungle can take a man, and close behind him like he was never there. I made it home. I survived Vietnam. I survived the jungle. The war ended the way wars always do. Slow on paper. Fast for the men still standing. I flew back across the ocean with a duffel bag and a head full of things I never talked about. I got a job. Met a woman who did not ask too many questions. Built a family. We bought a quiet house. White walls. Clean floors. A place where nothing moved unless the wind pushed it. People said I was lucky. They said I came back whole. They were wrong. I still wake up before dawn. Heart racing. Hands searching for a rifle that is no longer there. I still listen before I speak. Still measure my breathing in the dark. Some habits never leave you. I never say names at night. Not out loud. Not even in my thoughts. My children learned that without knowing why. They learned to tap my shoulder instead of calling me from another room. I tell myself it is just caution. Just an old soldier habit. But sometimes late at night when the house goes still, I hear it. My name, not shouted, not whispered, spoken gently. It comes from the hallway, from the backyard, from places that should be empty. I do not turn my head. I do not answer. I sit very still and I stop breathing until the sound fades. In the morning, the house feels normal again. Sunlight, coffee, quiet conversations. No one else ever hears it. Louis' name never shows up in records. No body was recovered. No report explains where he went. The jungle took him clean. Years passed. Decades. Vietnam faded into history books and old movies. But rules do not fade. They stay where they were learned. I still follow them. Everyone. Because I learned something in that jungle. The war did not end when we left. Some things followed us home. And if you ever find yourself in a place where the air feels heavy and the night listens back, remember this. If you hear your name, do not answer. Because the jungle never forgot us. And it never forgave.